Welcome to MapleWoodian.com podcast. We are very, very honored to have on the phone William Mookie Wilson, who is promoting his new book on the 86 Mets. Mookie, Life, Baseball, and the 86 Mets. Mookie, how you doing?
I'm doing just fine. How you doing?
Great. I appreciate you talking to us. You're getting lots of interesting responses to the book. I read it, and I am not a big, quick book reader, but this was such a pleasure to read. I zipped right through, and I give anyone who has the same kind of fear of books to dive right in, because this is a great page turner. A lot of good stuff about the Mets, about the 86 team, but also baseball and your interesting upbringing. Anyone who was not around in the 86 team was playing, maybe younger Met fans, I think it's required reading for them to know the history. And if you were watching in 86, as I was, it's some great background stories. What caused you to write this at this time? Was it just sort of your own time to really talk about those days in your own personal life?
Yes. I mean, I thought about writing a book many years ago, but I was kind of caught in the middle as to what kind of book, what I wanted to portray in the book, and I didn't want to do a traditional baseball book, a play-by-play book. I didn't want to do that. I wanted something that would give people more insight on, first of all, myself, Mookie Wilson, and then secondly, the world of baseball behind what people actually saw and what we performed. And I just thought that this was a great opportunity to do that.
Now, you were raised in Earhart, South Carolina, one of 12 children.
Yes.
Your father was a sharecropper. You speak very highly of him. Tell people, how did he inspire you and guide you as a child and later as a young adult in such a difficult circumstance?
It's just the way that he lived. He always showed lots of love for everyone. He never, I've never seen him angry,
Yeah.
And that was always puzzling to me, how could a man, struggle the way he had and not ever be angry. As a child, you don't pay attention to those things, but when you grow older, you begin to kind of develop your own little character and questioning everything that goes on. And he always stressed us to be good and to always be the best you can be, no matter what that may be, and that to have pride in yourself. And I just thought the world of it.
Now, you write in the book, the chapter about your childhood is called "My Great Escape." Was that for people who don't know, even in your childhood, the difficulties of being African American in the South, and sort of what you had to endure and how you got out of it with some positive approaches that maybe a lot of people in your circumstance wouldn't have?
Well, I think that was a very, very important to put in because, we live, the world is changing and very rapidly. Sometimes I don't think that we can actually keep up with some of the changes and stuff. But I wanted kids, particularly kids who are underprivileged and thinking that, their environment is the limitations that is set on them. It's what their lives should be. And I think that I come from as humble beginnings as anybody. And if I could, have an attitude to be better, then anyone can do it. I just don't want people to think that, that their present situation, should dictate what their future should be. And that's what I hope that they get from it. It's not intended to brag or pat myself on the back or anything of that nature, but to inspire them to, hey, you can be black, blue, pink, or purple, have 50 cents in the bank, but, you still can, survive in this world and be very productive.
Now, you attended the University of South Carolina. You write that you were the first African-American player on that team, and that was only in 1977. And you kind of had your own Jackie Robinson experience, being the lone African-American on that team in the South. How did that affect you, and how do you think you got through that?
I think that it really helped me a lot in growing and understanding people. It also helped me it kind of reinforced the things that my father always tried to teach us, and that is to judge people on their own merit. And that was so evident in that team. Yes, I was the only black on that team, and I had teammates that really helped me through it just by respecting who I was and showing me respect that they showed everybody else and on that team. It was, lonely in a way because I didn't have one to share any social background or history with. But that being said, I learned so much more about people that weren't, that weren't in my culture, that wasn't in my same, religion for that matter. It's just made me a better person, and if I had to do it all over again, I would. I understand what Jackie Robinson went through a little bit because I did have some adversity, but through all that adversity, it made me a better person and inspired me to go on and to be more successful in what I was doing.
Did you find that there was on the field there was less of a real black-white divide? It seems like a lot of people talk about, especially baseball, has black and white players, not like some sports have more black or more white. Did you find that on that team or subsequent teams, or was there still sort of a divide sometimes, the black players and the white players?
It just wasn't many black players, period.
Right.
So that's a question that I think it kind of answers itself because there was some division there because I just don't remember seeing many black ball players on teams that I played. I think when we went to the College World Series was probably when I saw the most black players, and this was teams, the California teams from the West Coast had more black players, like Arizona State for that matter. But teams in that area where we played, they didn't have black ball players, So, there was one or two years there, but that was about it.
Now, were there white players who were more friendly to you than others, or were all the players pretty nice to you? Or was there some real racism among some of the players you played with?
No, all the players on my team were just outstanding.
Excellent.
They were outstanding. I never had an issue with any of them. They treated me just like, they did everyone else. My players were just outstanding. I think it goes back to we had an outstanding coach who was Joan Raines.
Right, you read a lot about him.
Yeah, we had played some pro ball, so he was accustomed to being around African American ball players. He probably played with some of the best, African American ball players in the game. And I think everyone took lead from him, but it was just I had a fantastic relationship with the ball players. I think I had more of an issue with some of the fans on the road than anything else. But for the players, I didn't have an issue.
Now, again, we're talking to Mookie Wilson. He will be at Words Bookstore in Maplewood Village this Saturday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. And I urge anyone to read the book who's either a baseball fan or not even, because a lot of interesting stories. Let me ask you this. We're talking to you just a few days after the LA Clippers owner he was banned from the NBA for his racist comments. What's your thought on that in terms of owners and players and race?
I think that we have to really acknowledge the fact that there are still some people who harbor racist feelings, in their heart, and eventually it comes out, whether it is alcohol-induced or whatever. I don't care how you say it. It's still there. It's reality. That's just the way it is. But as this country and the sports has done over the years, they have found a way to overcome. And this one is just one way of weeding out one of those bad apples.
So you think it was the right move by the NBA?
I think it's the absolute right move by the NBA because there's no place for that. And now somebody goes, well, he's not the only one. Well, maybe not.
But he's the one we know about.
When the rest of them show their true colors, then they should be going to whether they're black, pink, white, blue, or purple. It doesn't matter. When you can bring that type of attitude into a sport that is meant for people to enjoy, for families to enjoy, we don't need any kind of racist statement, no matter who it comes from. So yes, get rid of him, let him do something. Trust me, he's not going to be hurt, and he could be able to survive. He has all these years, so he'll be okay.
Now, let's get back to the Mets. The early 80s Mets was a real team that was built up over many years. First, George Foster, you write about him, and then Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry. You also have, and it's well known at the time, this was a real rowdy team, a real loudmouth, unconventional team. You call one of the groups the Scum Bunch. How do you think that helped the team to be sort of different and really not care about how people perceived them? How did that help? How did it hurt, maybe, for those who don't know the behind the scenes of that 80s team leading up to 86?
Well, the one thing that, whether you like or dislike the attitudes of those guys, the one thing that they were real. they weren't pretentious. They weren't hypocrites. They were baseball players, and their main objective was to play baseball. They weren't out trying to sell books,
right,
or make some choir, or pretend to be someone they're not. They were personalities that weren't afraid to be themselves. It hurt them as far as the public concern over endorsements and all that kind of stuff. Yes, they couldn't get
That's true.
Stuff. But for baseball players, they were the best players I've ever played with. And many things have been written about them. The books about the bad guys won, or whatever you want to call it. But other teams hated them because of their arrogance. But they respected them because they knew when they came to play, the 86 team, they had a fight on their hand, and more times than not, they were going to lose. There were some bad things that probably came out of it. But the good thing is that they were baseball players, and they really cared about each other in spite of what people thought they did off the baseball field. As a unit, they was the best team I've ever played with.
Now, you talk about a few specific people. Keith Hernandez writes the foreword to the book, has praise for you, and you have great praise for him. What influence did he have, and how would you let people know what he meant to that team who may not know?
As we know, when I came up in '80, the team was just terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, that might be an understatement, but it was terrible. And even though when the Mets started bringing up young players like myself and Hubie Brooks and the Wally Fackmans, Jesse Orozco's, we still needed, it was an element of professionalism and experience that we did not have. And when we brought in Keith Hernandez, that was the beginning of let's bring in some expertise now to show these young guys how to put their talents in together. Because baseball is more than just talent. It's about an attitude. It's about understanding the game, understanding the dynamics and the study of the opponent. And Keith Hernandez was the absolute best at dissecting pitchers and defenses and all that stuff. And Keith was a vital part in that. Not to mention he was just a Gold Glove first baseman.
Yes.
And then the Mets went one step farther and brought in Gary Carter, who, in all right, he was an all-star catcher who knew how to handle pitchers. In spite of people not really liking him in the beginning, this guy was a fantastic ball player. And when those two guys came in, that's what we needed. Because we had the talent. We had the Strawberry. We had the Gooden. We had the Roscoe. We had the Wally Backbones. We had all of that. We just needed that experience, that one element to keep everything together. If at some point things may start to get a little rough, we had some experience to say, just calm down and keep doing what you're doing. And that's what those guys brought.
Now, you also have some criticism of Gary Carter, saying that I guess he was sort of his own man, a little bit of a maybe not a hot dog, but kind of like the spotlight. But obviously, you praise him as a player. But how was his personality kind of a little bit irksome, maybe, to some players?
Well, first of all, I wrote a perspective, a point of view of Gary Carter. It wasn't a criticism, but it's an observation that is true. He was not well liked, and anyone that played with Gary Carter, played against Gary Carter in those days, will tell you that he just was not a well-liked person. And it has nothing to do with what Gary Carter did or who Gary Carter was. It's just that they did like him. They always say, if they don't like you, that means you're doing something right. You're doing something good. And he was just one of those players that they thought that he was, not as genuine as he pretended to be.
Really, because he came out as a friendly guy, always smiling, played like a kid. His nickname, obviously, but for the teammates, that didn't go well.
Well, that didn't go well, because understand now, you talk about a team that had some of the most rowdiest guys.
True. I hear you.
Okay. So, understandably, they would think, well, that guy can't be all that, And, it then sometimes players just start to fall into that pattern. And then after the year, the first year might have been a little shaky. Gary had to really sell himself to a team, which he did. Which he absolutely did. And he became just a vital part of the team, socially and professionally. And, but there again, that does not take away from the fact of what they thought of Gary Carter in the beginning. And let's face it, now, we used to call Gary Camera Carter.
Right.
He never saw a camera he didn't like. That is just fact. That's just who Gary was. It's not a criticism. It's not a knock. It's an observation of a personality.
Wouldn't that have sort of helped take some of the attention away from some of the bad guys? Or it didn't really work that way?
No, it did. It did. When there was something going on, and they needed a couple quotes or something going on in the game, you could always depend on Gary to have, an opinion about something, because he was very open about his opinions, sometimes to a fault. But that was Gary. He was one guy that you could always go to. So, yes, it did help to deflect some of the media attention away from the other players. And, it was good in that way.
Now, you also talk about, obviously, two of the great young players ever in the Mets organization, Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry. They both went on to have substance abuse problems. But you say that the Mets didn't, as you put it, mishandle them, and maybe some of the players, teammates, if they had known more, what have you write about how you could have stepped in to help, or maybe other players could have stepped in to help, or the Mets organization. How would you describe the way they were mishandled, or maybe could have been handled better?
Well, there again, when people read the book, and I hope that they do read the book and get the whole content of the conversation, what the message I'm trying to relay. And that is, when I say Mets, that includes Mookie Wilson.
Sure.
So that we did not, I thought that we probably missed some signs that maybe we could have helped if we had been open to the signs that may have been obvious, but to us, maybe we were too wrapped up in winning and whatever else we were doing that we didn't see it coming, and maybe we could have helped these young players, two very young players, and some of the things that was going on, or if not help, at least we'd have made the effort. Now, someone said to me today that, look, people don't like for you to invade on their privacy. Well, maybe not, but if we were humanitarians, and we really cared about each other the way we did, but maybe we only cared about them just as far as what he can do in baseball field at that point. Getting older now, we look back on that, and that's what I'm doing, just looking back on it. That's why I say maybe we could have done something better. Maybe I could have done something better, and management also, but maybe not. But at this point, we'll never know, because I didn't try.
Right.
I blame myself for that.
And you're right. I think what made Doc especially vulnerable to getting caught up with alcohol and drugs was that he always wanted to please people. Yep. He also, he was on the verge of greatness. There were people who desperately wanted to hang out with him. As these people couldn't be great on their own, they wanted to know someone who was, and I would imagine that is true for a lot of young players.
Yeah, it's out there. It's out there. So we have to try to protect them from that type of stuff whenever we can. Some people can't be helped, but that doesn't stop you from making an effort.
Now, after the great 86 season, of course, everyone talks to you about the ground ball and Bill Buckner. You write a lot about Bill Buckner, very interesting relationship you have where you got together, you made money signing autographs, and you really seem to understand him and realize what he went through, and he's really come through that well, it seems. Talk about you and Bill Buckner in a way people may not know.
Well, I think that people, Bill Buckner is one of those players that I think has been misunderstood, misevaluated. This guy is borderline Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he was a very great player. Yes.
2,700 hits, Gold Glove, a batting title. This guy's a phenomenal player, and one era has really defined who this player was, and that's not fair. And when he and I first got together, it was just under situations where, it actually, an error was made, and maybe 6 years later, some company gets us together to sign some autographs. And we do, and we start talking, and then we start to find out that we have more in common than just an error.
Right.
So we take advantage of that, and we learn so much about each other, and it made it easy for us to talk about it, because I really didn't know how to talk to the guy at the beginning. I mean, I really did not know how to talk to the guy. And he really helped me get through that part of it, and to say, hey, I'm okay. That kind of stuff happens. And we became just such good friends over the years, and every year we're just together on a constant basis. As a matter of fact, I just sent him a text 2 or 3 days ago. So he texted me back. We are in constant contact right now because we have so much in common, and I never would have known that if it had not been from that ground ball. So, but
And you even credit him with breaking the ice. I think you were in Toronto, and he walked by and made a friendly little joking comment about some ground balls, and that kind of broke the ice a little bit.
Well, that's what I meant by, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't know how to really, approach him. And, the comment, he just walks by me and says, hey, Mook, you want to kick some ground balls? Because I saw walking across the field, I was going to go the other way because I didn't want to face the guy.
Right.
I hadn't seen him since the 86 season. This will be talking like 90, 89 or 90 now. And I haven't seen the guy, but all of a sudden, here he comes. I got to, I can't avoid him forever. And he does that, and he just really put my mind at ease. He really, really did a great thing for me then. And I've told him, I've spoken to him many times about it, and he just let me know that, hey, it wasn't my fault. It's just one of those things that happened. People don't know how much that meant to me.
Excellent. Well, let me ask you all this. Now, you also write about, after 86, the team, they won a division again in 88, but you really say they were an underachiever and that the organization did not help keep people together. You mentioned Kevin Mitchell leaving, and that the team really didn't embrace that 86 team, either keeping them together to keep winning or in later years. What do you think was the problem with that? There again, I want people to understand when they read the book. And once they read the whole book, even that one chapter, it brings everything together. Right. And I urge people to read the entire story.
Yeah,
it's a great book.
But it's just that when a team is made up of more than just a bunch of numbers.
Right.
You win, but there's a reason why you win. And sometimes it has nothing to do with how many hits you get, how many strikes you throw, how many people you struck out. Sometimes it's all about the characters that you're performing with and that develop that attitude that you portray to the other team. Mm. We won a lot of games, in 86 because people actually feared the team, But after that, we became, for lack of a better term, a lot of good guys. People didn't have that same fear against us. And then again, we probably were a little bit arrogant that we probably were trying to live on our past a little bit, and we didn't evolve. We didn't change because we didn't have the same personnel. We didn't have personnel. We didn't have Ray Knight. And we didn't have Kevin Mitchell. People say, well, that's only two players. Those were two fabulous ball players with attitudes, with characters that just don't grow on trees. And I think that was a big part of us.
And you say also you were upset with the organization. You say, I was upset with the organization for not showing me the level of respect I had earned, and was even more frustrated with myself for allowing it to go on for all the years that it did when you were slowly playing less and eventually left the team. What was it about the organization you think that did that, and how it affected you?
Well, it affected me in a ways, and there again, when you play and you probably don't, I'll frustrate myself because I probably should have spoken up a lot sooner. When you take a switch hitter and make him a platoon player, does that make any sense? I don't see where that makes any sense. Particularly when you take the one side away from him that's been his strength anyway and makes him hit from the other side. I don't get it. I don't get that. But that was just part of it. And then you bring in another player to play the position that his guys played after you traded the guy who was your opponent with. It's just a lot of things that never made sense, and there was no explanation ever really given. And, it just kept going on and on. And it just didn't show any kind of respect for my professional, abilities to play the game or my ability to make decisions and stuff of that nature. So that's what that's all about,
And why do you think they've been, as you put it, distancing themselves from the image of that team? That was such a colorful team. That was only one of two World Series teams, and the comeback, against the Red Sox, the great regular season. I think a lot of people forget you guys wrapped up the divisions very early. Why do you think the Mets are not embracing that team more to sort of look back? It just seems like it'd be a natural.
Well, I think that my whole comments is actually a question. Why won't they? Why wouldn't you tap into the talent that was there? Why wouldn't you tap into that? Why wouldn't you tap into those attitudes that was there to help your team right now? Why wouldn't you do that? That's the question. That is the question that probably needs to be answered, or maybe they had the answer, just hadn't publicized it. I don't know. Maybe I wasn't around. I have no idea. But, you know, those players, those characters are just not there anymore. And, you know, when one by one they begin to just disappear and you don't see anything else or hear anything else from them, then you have to wonder, what was the problem?
Now, you have a picture in the book of you with the World Series trophy in 2006, the 20th anniversary, so they obviously acknowledge it then.
Yeah.
And two of the players, Ron Darling and Keith Hernandez, are Mets announcers, so they at least give some individual respect. But what do you...
Now,
go ahead.
I will say this about that, and someone asked about this, well, okay, look at Keith Hernandez and Ron Darling they are announcers.
Right.
They have nothing to do with baseball.
Right.
Okay, that is the question. They have nothing to do with player development.
Mm-hmm.
They have nothing to do with teaching the guy to catch a ground ball. They have nothing to do with the guy to throw the ball, catch the ball, run a base. That's my point.
So they should be coaches or instructors or yourself. Would you want to, or do you go with spring training and help the young players so they don't reach out?
Yeah, I went to spring training for 3 days. Okay. All right. So, yeah. So understand. People need to understand that. People say, well, you're looking at Ron Darling, Keith Hernandez, and then Bobby O'Hara. They don't do announcers.
Right.
Okay. All right. That has nothing to do with baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, you went to spring training for 3 days this year or in the past?
This year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And was that something that should have been more, or was that something you thought was good enough?
Well, I mean, it should have been more.
Yeah.
It depends if you go in there for a purpose. Yeah, it should be more, but if you're not going there for a purpose, no, 3 days is enough.
Oh, I see.
Okay.
Why did you go there then? Did they invite you in?
Well,
or you...
It's part of the agreement that I have as team ambassador.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting. What do you think is the biggest misconception of the '86 team, if any? People maybe don't know the truth, good or bad.
I think that I wouldn't say misconception, but I would like for people to know that the '86 team, you know, yes, they were a little rowdy, and but they were caring people. They really cared about each other and their families and stuff. I will say that. But, you know, I'm not going to sit here and try to insult people's intelligence. You know, yes, these guys were, you know, they had their own attitudes and the way of doing things, and some things were even not morally or socially acceptable. But they were baseball players, and they cared more about the game than about what people thought of them. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so that's about the only thing that really I would like people to understand about that team.
And that's a lot. You can't. There's a lot of players today who don't look at it that way. They want to get the money or the fame or the stats.
Well, it's about endorsements. You know, I got to promote this image that, you know, I'm going to be able to get this Nike deal or whatever deal. And, you know, the guys I play with, look, ain't nobody been knocking on their doors or no endorsements.
That's true.
It just ain't happening.
Now, you write a whole chapter about that last inning in Game 6. And you describe it very well. I would urge people, again, to read the whole book, and especially for a lot of detail. But just quickly, what was sort of the thought process? Obviously, you're down. Were people just sort of, I guess you don't really give up and have a comeback like that, but Keith Hernandez has talked about how he actually went into the clubhouse. And what was the mood? Was it just sort of shock or just never give up?
Well, you know, I just want people to understand, you know, that sometimes I think pitchers really tell a lot, and I think if people watch the video, you know, once they read the book, watch the videos, they will see that even though it's more about what Boston did not do as opposed to what we did, they allowed us back into the game because we were pretty much defeated.
Right.
You know, and they gave us a little hope. And once you do that to a team that we had, that was where they messed up, you know. So there's nothing magical about it. There was nobody in the clubhouse rah and stuff like that. No, that didn't happen.
But I noticed in a lot of professional baseball games, these comebacks, you just wonder, you know, where do you get sort of the urge to. Now, obviously, a World Series game is one thing, but even regular season games, teams will just not stop. It's one of the beauties of baseball. There's no clock.
Yeah.
You know, does that sort of happen in every game? You just have to have that mindset, or are some games better than others? How do you really pull out that inner fight?
Yeah, you just have to understand that in baseball, it's about outs. It's about outs, and you have to make every out. And when you get a little lax and something happens, baseball is just one of those mysteries about the game that you can't really explain everything that happens. It's just that when things start to happen, you can't stop them. You can't call timeout, and change this play and change that play and do all that. You can't do it. You just don't have that luxury. Once that player is out, he's out. You can't keep calling time when the pitcher starts fight. After the second time, you got to come out of the game. Now what are you going to do? So you're limited with what moves you can make, and baseball is just, it's very difficult game to really figure out why things happen the way they happen. Now, I guess one of the mysteries of the game, and that's why I love it, because it's unpredictable. Every game, every inning, every at-bat has its own little mystery about it, and we just have to navigate your way through it.
Now, you also say, I know you have to run. I appreciate it. I want to ask you two quick things. You say the steroid era made a mockery of things like home run records and other stats. You say you don't blame necessarily the players for trying to get an edge, but still the league could have done more to clamp down on that. Talk about your view on the whole steroid impact.
Well, I try not to get too much into the steroid thing because, I think that sometimes, as I said, you turn a blind eye to things that when it's benefiting everybody, and maybe they could have been a little more proactive in that era, and they weren't. And I couldn't tell you all the details. That's why I wouldn't bother like getting into details. Mm-hmm. But there was a lot going on there that someone had to be suspicious about, But there again, nothing was done. But now you get caught with your hand in a cookie jar. Guess what? Now you pay the price.
Should there be more severe penalties? Should you be kicked out for a first-time offense, maybe, or?
No. I don't believe in that. I just think that I don't believe in that. I don't think that that's necessary. I think that's a little drastic. Now, I just don't think that that's necessary. I do think that is a way to that should have been handled probably a little quicker. Mm-hmm. I think they're doing a pretty good job now, which is great for the game. But I don't think that's kicking out is necessary. No.
Excellent. Now, the one other thing we have to mention is you are not just Mookie Wilson author, Mookie Wilson baseball veteran. You are Preacher Wilson, or as it says on the Zion Mill Creek Baptist Church website in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yes.
Elder-elect William Wilson. Now, tell us about how you got into ministry and how that's been a great part of your life today.
Elder-elect basically means preacher in training.
Excellent.
That's just what that means. And I've always been in church, so that's no secret there. I never thought I'd end up being a preacher, but sometimes things are not in our control, and now sometimes things are planned for you, and you can deny it the wrong way from it, but eventually it catches up to you. So I just think that this is what God has always had in store for me, and maybe I've been a preacher all my life and just didn't know it. Maybe I just decided to accept it. But that's what I do now, and I'm in training, and I'm hoping to be ordained sometime in the near future. But there's some time you have to put in. There's some studying you have to do. There's things you have to do, and I'm in the process of doing all that right now. So, and what happens is that I do Sunday services on quite a bit, and all those other things you do in church and the rituals and whatever. I do all those things. It's just that if I have to preach outside of my congregation, I have to get permission from my bishop to do so because I'm not fully ordained. That's all. That's really what it is.
Interesting. Oh, the other thing I want to talk about is your family life. You're a father, but now your wife had been married to your brother.
Yes.
Years ago, and they had gotten divorced.
Yes.
And then talk about that. That's real interesting. You had some family dysfunction from that. People gave you kind of a hard time for a while, but you really came out of that.
I wouldn't say dysfunction, but if I tell you everything I like this, nobody's gonna ever read the book.
No, but I'm telling people, even if they're not wanting to just hear the baseball, a lot of your personal life is really interesting.
Yes, it is.
To read about how you had kind of an interesting background, but your marriage has survived, and obviously now with your ministry, a very positive outcome.
It has really. It's been good, and it's just. It's one of those things that that happens that you don't plan.
Yes.
It just happens and it ends up being right. And it has been just a beautiful thing has happened. My wife and I, and my family and I, we've just been as close as we ever could have ever been, and it just But initially, there's been a little rift there. Initially, of course. I guess you can understand why it would be, but it was very short-lived.
Excellent, and I would assume that plays into a lot of your ministry today, where you give people a second chance and hope for getting out of whatever difficulty they're in.
Yes,
because you had to go through some difficulties.
Everybody goes through difficulty, and that's why I was very transparent in everything in this book. See, people like think it's no sense of being transparent about other people if you're not going to be transparent about yourself.
Yes.
And I want people to understand that this book is not a one-way thing. This is the absolute truth of Mookie Wilson and who he is and why he feels the way he does and why he is the person he is and how he got here. That's what I want people to get from it.
Excellent. Well, I appreciate you being with us. Again, the book is Mookie, Life, Baseball, and the 86 Mets. Mookie will be at Words Bookstore in Maplewood Village Saturday, 5 o'clock. You can read more about it on their website, and you can go to Amazon.com and other places to order it, but you can do best to buy it there and have him autograph it, and I'm sure there'll be some baseball stories when you speak to the crowd there. A great pleasure, sir, to speak with you, and I appreciate your time, and good luck with all of it and with your ministry and everything going forward.
Man, thank you. I really enjoyed it, and good luck to you.
You too, sir. Be well.